Here are some takeaways from the Democratic National Convention that just concluded. Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe and let's get started. Some political commentators are saying that the Democratic Party is a happy mess. Well, I think these experts have forgotten what reality feels like. Donald's hateful politics has polluted our politics and public discourse for so long that genuine engagement looks messy. Well, democracy is messy. Nothing new about it. Democrats are united and focused. We have a lot of work to do to keep our republic, to expand our liberties, and reclaim our freedoms. And that's what we saw happen in these 4 days. So, what I'm going to do is briefly mention each of the 4 days and what happened, and give you a brief understanding of the energy coming out of the DNC. On the first night, it was about thanking President Joe Biden for his legacy, for his work for the American people, and for making the decision to step aside. At the very end, President Biden said that America, America, I give you my best. And that President Biden's decision to step aside changed everything for the Democratic Party. And we should be grateful to President Biden for not just stepping aside, but also setting the agenda that will keep us going for the next generation. The Inflation Reduction Act, the Infrastructure Act, the CHIPS Act, gun rights legislation. These are all legislations passed and signed into law that will keep on paying forward for years to come because it will build our infrastructure. It will give us a social network to rely upon. It allows for manufacturing jobs to come back to the United States. It works to make our schools and our streets safer from gun violence. And President Biden and Vice President Harris, they both know that all of these factors and several others have to be implemented in order for America to move forward. And we saw that and heard that message, the compare and contrast between the two sides, where Kamala Harris and the Democrats want to restore reproductive freedom, whereas Donald Trump and Project 2025 want a national abortion ban. That is one of the biggest issues that will come up. And so on the second day, we heard from the powerhouse Michelle Obama and President Obama, and their message was resoundingly pointing at the ridiculousness and the frivolity of Donald Trump and how he has diminished and demeaned our political process and public discourse. They did a masterful job. Also, about President Biden, after the first day of the convention, he was asked about any pressure that was put on him for stepping aside. And he said very clearly that nobody knew about what his decision was going to be and that he made his decision. And we need to believe what President Biden says instead of speculating that other people pushed him out. You know, the commentators and opinion writers will always speculate as to who was the hand behind who was the real power behind all of this. Well, sometimes the simplest answer is the right answer. Joe Biden is still the leader of the Democratic Party. Joe Biden made the decision to step aside. And by doing that, he upended Donald Trump's campaign. And we're seeing that Donald Trump's campaign really has nothing of substance. They have gone over and over and over and attacked Kamala Harris and Tim Walz for their personal looks, their personal demeanors, and that and Tim Walz's military service. And these things are easily disproved. These things, the false narratives that Donald Trump and his MAGA base keeps trying to build, need time. False narratives need time. They need to be caked on top of each other. The conspiracy theories need to build and build a base of belief and then build off of that. Well, because of President Biden's decision, because of the swift movement of the Democratic Party and the unity in the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris sailed through that process, and there is unity in the Democratic Party, while there is disarray amongst Republicans and MAGA. So on the third day was about Tim Walz, and we heard how real his service is, what he has done. It was really endearing to see his football team come up on stage and talk about their coach. It was endearing for people like Nancy Pelosi to come up and talk about how Tim Walz was a champion and worked across party lines to get things done for rural communities and for veterans. And these are, and then we heard from Hakeem Jeffries. So we heard from Jim Clyburn. So you see, we heard from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, from Maxwell Frost. You see, I wanted to wait all 4 days to culminate to be able to talk about this, because we are seeing leadership of a new Democratic Party rise up, and we're seeing an intra-party transition into a next generation of leaders, and we're seeing a unity where everybody from Bernie Sanders to Adam Kinzinger, who is a conservative, who is concerned about national security and democracy, have all endorsed Kamala Harris. So Kamala Harris covers the broad spectrum from social Democrats like Bernie Sanders and AOC all the way to Adam Kinzinger and Mayor Giles of Texas, I forget the name of the town, to come together and vote for Kamala Harris. And in today's final speech, and in accepting her nomination, Vice President Harris made it clear that she would be working for the working people. Her family came out on stage and told the story of where she came from. She talked about her childhood, and she talked about policy. She talked about reproductive freedom. She talked about foreign policy, domestic policy, border policy, energy policy. She talked about the things that she's going to do in order to move us forward, and she refuses to go back. We are not going back. And that is the message that resoundingly, in a unified way, came out of the Democratic National Convention. That is the message that the Democratic Party and pro-democracy coalition is sending out to Donald Trump, MAGA, and anybody else who would undermine the United States government, the rule of law, and our democracy, that we, the people, will not let that happen. The Democratic Party and the vast majority of the American people will not let that happen. And that is the message that came out of the Democratic National Convention that ended today. Thank you so much for being here. Please stick around and check out some of the other videos. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment box. I'm doing my best to bring more light. So somebody complained about the lighting. I use natural lighting, so I can only talk at a certain time, depending on what the light is in the room. And I'm working on a shoestring budget, so please excuse me. My whole goal is to get the information that I saw, what I perceived, to you. You may have seen something completely different. And you see Donald Trump melting down on Truth Social with personal attacks and what they're talking about. It's not really a response to any sort of convention. It is just him melting down. And that is the state of the GOP right now. They are in meltdown mode. So remain vigilant. Register to vote. Make sure you are registered to vote. Make sure that other people and who are around you are registered to vote. Get out and vote. If you're mailing voting by mail, wait eagerly for your ballot. Contact your election commission to make sure your ballot has been mailed. And as a backup, when you get your email for the mail in ballots, print out and fill out the paper version of it that you can, just in case your ballot does not arrive in time. These are the things that we can do and we need to do. If you're able to phone bank, if you're in the country, then please do it. If you're able to come out and explain to the American people why it's important for us to vote for VP Harris and Governor Walz, do it. Do every single thing that you think you can. This is not a time for us to get tired. This is the time for us to energize. This is the time for us to win our country back from the craziness of Donald Trump, from the tyranny and the terror that Donald Trump continues to sow in our society. I believe that after Donald Trump loses this election, he may continue to want to stay in the political limelight, but he is not going to. He is the losing candidate 3 times. So, well, first time the popular vote he lost, but he won electorally. Second time he lost by 7.5 million votes and electorally. And this time, I believe if we can get ourselves up off our rooms and into the voting booths or to the post box, then we will have an America where our freedoms are protected. We will have a joyful America, and we will move forward together to lead the world and lead democracies around the world progress for the sake of humanity. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll talk to you soon.